All right, so we are back. And I want to say back, but not necessarily according to our regular flow, right? We are doing this special bonus episode of Rich Lessons. And that's really just because of what's been happening in the world, what's been happening here in the US with our friends and families and associates in LA. I think that we ended one of our episodes and we were like, are we okay? And we were thinking about, are we okay from 2024? But are we okay in 2025 on halfway through the month? Are we okay? Are we still? No, I don't think so.
The first 2 weeks came in with a bang, literally, based off the car blowing up in Chicago? Was it Chicago? No, Las Vegas.
In Las Vegas, but don't forget about the terrorist attack that killed almost 15 people, so 14 people, and 15 if you include the actual terrorists in New Orleans on Bourbon Street, literally at 3:30 a.m. on January 1st. So New Year's Day, we basically had a complete shutdown of Bourbon Street, of downtown, because of terrorist attack. And so you're right, the Las Vegas car bombing, which is also they think was a suicide bombing, happened on January 1st too. And a couple days later, wildfires in LA.
Yeah. So 2025 has come in interesting. Very, very interesting. But also every event that we just named is so unfortunate. And to your point, like lives have been lost, homes have been lost, properties have been lost. And this episode, or this special episode, this bonus episode, was really around those tragedies, but also around a lot of misinformation that we've been seeing online in regards to how to handle the wildfires that have unfortunately taken over a lot of homes, burned down a lot of homes in LA. And for someone like you, you lived through Katrina, you were in New Orleans with Katrina, and you dealt with, yes, that was a hurricane, LA's fire, but there was a lot of things that align as far as I have been dealing with FEMA and dealing with insurance. And so this episode is definitely about trying to take away some of that misinformation, give your perspective of someone who's lived through something that had to deal with, once again, the FEMA, the insurance, and give people resources.
Yeah, I think when I text you, I was like, Sheena, we have to do a bonus special episode because one, I think that my heart just dropped when I kept hearing all the stories from the families who had lost their home. And it always started with, we were just rushing out. We left thinking that tomorrow we would come back, right? Like this was just a drill, a fire drill. We thought we were going to be okay. So we just left with the clothes on our back, right? And I was like, that's literally the feeling that so many had, so many went through doing Hurricane Katrina. And so I posted something on Threads and I basically said, like, take some time to like grieve and really sit with your feelings, but also understand what happens next, right? And so I started seeing people post misinformation around I think someone said, oh, you can get a temporary home. You can buy a temporary home on Amazon and put it on your land. And I'm like, don't buy a temporary house and put it on your land. Like, just wait. Like, you need to pause for a second and see what resources are out there. See what FEMA gives you from the standpoint of temporary housing. Because during Hurricane Katrina, many of the individuals got temporary housing in the form of campers and trailers, and they were able to put it on their home. Now, I will tell you, I did have to reach out to a friend of mine who connected me with her husband who works for FEMA. And I was like, are they still doing that? He was like, absolutely. Like, we are still providing temporary housing. We are still providing assistance for temporary housing for individuals who have lost everything, right? And so before someone tells someone to go out and buy a temporary camper from Amazon, I was like, just wait a second and actually see what resources are coming down the pipeline. Now, I did have to ask them about those temporary homes for Katrina because a lot of them were filled with asbestos. I mean, it was like
I
people got
remember that.
really sick. Do you remember that? Like, so many stories came from that. However, I have been reassured that the trailers of yesterday are not the trailers of today. That was 20 years ago. This is the 20-year anniversary of Katrina. And so a lot of things have changed, and hopefully things have progressed for the better, and people have learned from the lessons of Katrina of how to serve and respond to disaster in a better way.
Yeah, I know one thing that I've been seeing a lot of, and I think people are trying to figure out is, to your point, like, what do I do next? Like, is FEMA going to come to me? Do I have to go find FEMA? Is the state coming? And again, we know I want to say again, because I know some people will probably respond and say, well, what's going on in LA with fires is totally different from, a hurricane dealing in, New Orleans. But again, state resources, federal resources are part of what's supposed to come and help. So in your experience with Katrina, we saw people sitting on the bridge, the Superdome, having issues. So for people who are wondering, don't know, still kind of in that I lost everything, and is FEMA supposed to come to them? Or the state resources supposed to come to them? Or are they supposed to go out? How did that work? Especially with with Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah, someone posted today, and they were basically like, community moves faster than government, right? And I was like, absolutely. There are so many people that are coming to aid individuals who are evacuating from not having a home, from a fire taking their home. And so I do think it's a mixer of government and community that's needed in order to rebuild and get people back on their feet. One big difference between Katrina and the wildfires in LA is definitely like time, right? Individuals were able to go back in. I was so shocked. That's how people who were literally going back to where their house used to be and, taking video of like rubble. For Katrina, people could not come back into the city for weeks. And so people just had this idea, like, maybe my home is still there. Maybe it's not so bad. But when they were let back into the city, it was gone, right? They had nothing to go into. And so whether it be water or fire, the sentiments around losing everything and having to grieve the loss of all your memories that were held in like photos, right? Not grabbing the right documents, not having photos of what your home looked like before for insurance claims. And insurance is a whole nother issue that those in New Orleans dealt with, and those in Florida. I talked about Asheville, North Carolina, right? They just went through a major hurricane. 100,000 homes were damaged or completely destroyed. Dozens of people were also killed. Hundreds of people went missing, right? And so we're constantly dealing with all of these disasters across the country. And now we're seeing one hit LA very hard, right? And so I think we can all learn from each other of not only ways to come together, and I do feel like all communities come together, right? And I can say that whether you're in Mississippi, whether you are in New Orleans, whether you're in LA, whether you're in New York, when disaster strikes, one of the great things about humanity is that people come together to try to help out their neighbors, and even help out their neighbors from afar, right? Whether they live in that state or not.
Yeah, I think that talking about the insurance piece, I think the heartbreaking piece that I've been seeing a lot of is, and this is also me trying to do more research, is one of the insurance companies actually left the state of California, or no longer insuring people in the state of California when it came to fire. So they were kind of left out dry. That's all. That's kind of like literally somebody leaving you just, now what do I do? Because it's not like these people purposely were uninsured.
Yeah, they weren't. And also they didn't have enough time to re-up on insurance or go somewhere else. And also there was, they just enacted, this law that would essentially bar insurance companies from pulling their insurance. And so it's supposed to reinstate insurance for those who just had their insurance canceled. But let me tell you about these insurance companies. We all know that they are foul. They are foul. And that was the case during Katrina. People had insurance and those insurance companies went bankrupt. People had to fight insurance companies for years. I actually prompted the question on my social media and I was like, what was one lesson that you learned from going through a natural disaster if you went through one? And, you know, a friend of mine posted and responded. He was like, one crucial aspect that I've learned from Katrina is that the battles don't truly start until after the dust settles. My parents' insurance claim was denied after years of fighting, which resulted in them having to essentially take out a second mortgage on their home, which they have to still pay to this day, right? He also stayed in FEMA trailers that, unknown to them, had high traces or formaldehyde, right? Which caused his mom to have eye issues till this day, right? And so there are so many different aspects of it. My mom also, so the program in New Orleans after Katrina was called the Road Home Program, right? And that was the program that issued out funding to everyone. $9 billion was actually issued out to Louisiana residents to return home. But that money wasn't just to return home, right? Most people think like, oh, that money was to rebuild, but it was for a lot of different things. It was to, if you didn't want to rebuild, you could sell your home to the state, right? Or whatever that looked like. You could make fixes on your home. So for my mom, she received money to elevate our house because of flooding, right? But generally speaking, those grant awards were about $150,000. Today, in North Carolina, right, they have a program, whereas Katrina was on a larger scale, but both huge disasters, they received over $1 billion, so probably like $1.8 billion. And then their program is called something else. I think it's called North Carolina Rebuild. The same thing will happen in LA. Congress, which is a whole nother conversation, will determine what LA's program is called. And then through various grants, they will essentially fund the rebuilding of homes in LA.
You know, you made an interesting point in one of your posts. And I don't know if I would call it going viral, but you got a lot of responses. And you talked about, one, people thinking that everybody in LA is rich from Hollywood, they're a celebrity. And that's actually not the case, number one. And for number two, for those who are celebrities and they are multimillionaires or billionaires, there's a difference in having no sympathy, but then being empathetic. Just because they're a billionaire and lost their homes doesn't mean like they don't feel. So you want to talk about that? I thought that was really interesting. I thought the responses to that was actually really interesting.
Yeah, you know, I essentially was basically saying, and again, I'm reading all of these different comments. I'm watching these videos of people who lost their home. And particularly now you see the emergence of these Black families and Asian families and brown families, you know, who are coming out and saying, hey, we've actually had our homes for generations. And when we got up, they probably were not these $1 million homes in LA, right? They were middle class or working class, and they actually purchased these homes to pass down to their kids and their kids to their kids. And so they're telling their stories, and it immediately made me think about New Orleans and how very similar, right? New Orleans is one of the oldest cities for free people of color. And so you have people who have been here, Black people who have been here for generations and have had their homes and their families for generations. And after Katrina, people came in and they bought those homes for like pennies on the dollar. And today they're worth so much. And so my message to those families specifically was, if you can, don't sell the land. It's going to take a long time to rebuild. It's going to take money, and you're going to be tired. You probably already are tired. Some people will take the money that FEMA gives and they'll move away, right? Because they just don't want to go through the battle and the pain and the anxiety of having to rebuild. But if you can, like, I just urge families to try to rebuild and try to help their neighbors to rebuild and not forget about them. I don't think that we had social media the way we do, right, 20 years ago during Katrina. And it was more so like every man for themselves when it came to like your neighbor is gone. Like, the person that is, they're gone. So it's like, who do you talk to? Who do you reach out to? How do you connect with people? And people just didn't have the connectivity that social media gives today during Katrina. And so that was like my big lesson to share with other people. And it did receive, I think maybe 150,000 views and like thousands of likes and comments about yes, like how do we need to make sure we don't do that, right? And I also received some comments, people saying, well, this land was for our sons, we're not going to sell. Some people gonna sell, y'all. Like, it's just the way the world works, right? Because I was reading, I'm in a fellowship, and a guy actually wrote a letter in the Wall Street Journal. He lost his home, but his 96-year-old mother also lost her home. And she just left. She was an artist, and she just literally picked up her bags and left. She got hard of hearing. They're like, you need to evacuate. They pick her up. She didn't take anything. But her entire life went up in flames. And so at 96, rebuilding, right, looks a whole lot different. And he said, my mother won't rebuild. Yeah. So it's real.
I see your point. 96 is saying, let me start over. It's not the same as someone even 40, even 50 saying, I'll start over. That is a, let me go find somewhere that I am comfortable. Let me take the money that I have and just go live somewhere where I'm good. I think the thing also is like when a lot of trauma comes with it. You kind of just mentioned that. Like I have family in New Orleans who, when they left, some of them went back because they love New Orleans, that is home. And then some of them felt like, I just can't go through this anymore. Like the trauma of going through Katrina really hit them hard. And it was like, I love my city, but I don't want to go back there because now it's just trauma there for me.
Yeah. And I think that there's this element for people who are just like, I can't go through it again. Because when you live in places like New Orleans, like LA, that are known for natural disasters, I say natural disasters because, people are talking, they do an investigation in LA about maybe it was fireworks going out. And, people have a lot of thoughts around the levees breaking. We're not going to even go there. But natural disasters in certain cities, you kind of have to know that comes with the territory of living in those spaces, right? And it does reach a breaking point for some people who just say, I just don't want to live in fear anymore. And I think that is something that I definitely want to give people grace. If they do decide like, okay, I need to move, I want to move because I just don't want to live in fear of it happening again. I'm crazy because I'm in New Orleans, like paying these high insurance rates for flood insurance, and you got to get a separate home insurance. And, it just, because I do love New Orleans to the point where I'm like, nope, I'm just going to, push through. But I also am nobody's fool because I am aware of what could happen. And I just choose to live with that unknown because that's how much I love the city. And I think a lot of folks from LA feel that same way, and particularly from these neighborhoods that they have lived in for their entire lives and their entire family's history.
Yeah. You talk about community and how sometimes community responds much faster than government, which are all facts. But speaking of community coming together, or speaking of social media and just, the outside of government, there's pros and cons. The pros, which I want to talk about, is people donating, people doing what they can, sending money, sending clothes, which we'll talk about. But then there's also, the negative side of where you have people who literally are trying to take advantage of a super unfortunate situation. The scammers, the fake people who are saying, donate to me and I'm going to give it to this person, and knowing like they're actually trying to keep the money. It's actually really, really sad. So let's talk about the positive side first. There are a lot of places that you can donate. Because you lived through Katrina and you saw that, do you have any tips of who you should or shouldn't donate to, or some of the red flags as far as like, I don't know about, you should probably think twice before you donate, over here?
Yeah, I think it's like fair game at this point. However, I will say I started off giving to like the fire department, LA Fire Department Foundation. But I have shifted to give directly to families GoFundMes. And, I think I saw a friend of mine post that these billionaires and these millionaires, they're like, well, I don't know if that's legit. And so they're trying to they're taking time trying to essentially qualify who they give to instead of just giving the money, right? And so I always feel like there was like a balance between ensuring that you're not getting scammed. Because you know how many times we got scammed, everybody across every issue. I think it's just like the nature of the game. But I do feel more comfortable now in this opportunity to give directly to people's GoFundMes. And honestly,
people create fake GoFundMes, right? People are creating fake ones, which is so sad.
And you took the words out of my mouth. And if you create a fake GoFundMe, well, you know what? God gonna have to deal with you because I don't have the time. And I think that's just what it is, right? My grandmother and others are always, older people would say, you just do good. And whether or not people do right by that, that's on them. They have to live with that. And I think I kind of give with that mentality. And although I do a little bit of like, oh, okay, this person, I'm connected to this person 3 degrees separation, or this person's story just really stands out to me. And it looks like they have a credible background. I just give from that perspective versus just politicking all the time around everything when people are in need. But the scammers be scamming, baby. Okay. They be out here scamming. And a big scamming thing that I tell people to look out for during disasters is contractors, right? Contractors, people trying to sell fake insurance. All the scammers are about to be, on high alert and ready to scam. And I saw so many elderly people doing hurricanes who would give money and come out of their life savings to contractors, and they'd never see those people again. And it's sad.
Yeah, I believe in karma way too much to ever even think. But I know it happens, and it happens at a high level when something like this happens. So on the other side of that, people who are giving, particularly not giving money, they're giving items. One thing you posted, and I've actually seen it posted several places, is people are saying, please don't send any more clothes.
Oh, so I will say that I was about to be guilty of doing this. So I send grace to everybody who did it too. And people who still are, because maybe your friends do need clothes, but you're seeing those posts, people saying, look, we don't need any more clothes. And we definitely don't want y'all to use clothes, right? People say, oh, I'm going to send fresh clothes. And people are like, no, people need underwear and undergarments, but they don't. Thank you for sending your designer dress, but probably not going to use that or care about that right now. And even more so, one comment that really stood out to me was that someone said, oh, we thought climate was an issue. Climate change was an issue in LA. Wait till we have these mounds and mounds of clothes that have just been literally thrown everywhere because there's an overabundance of clothes. Please stop sending your clothes to LA. LA is one of the cities that has abundance of clothes. Yeah. And then the other point someone made, it's like, and I do think the biggest difference between Katrina, New Orleans, and LA is the disparity of income and wealth, right? And a lot of people who have lost their homes are like working middle class, definitely upper class, millionaires, billionaires. And although that does not matter as it relates to being empathetic at all, people did say, we probably know some people that got clothes for us, right? We have friends and neighbors and people from other places in the country that are sending us stuff too. And so it's just like strangers sending us stuff, people we know sending us stuff. Banana Republic and all these other people are also sending us stuff. And maybe clothes isn't the best thing to send us. Maybe a gift card would be nice. Money definitely would be nice, but maybe not clothes. Maybe we're done. Maybe we need to put a stop to the clothes. And it just made me think about climate change and fast fashion and just like mountains of clothes just going into the dumpster. So yeah, maybe we should stop sending the clothes. But y'all let me know. Y'all let me know. Y'all want some clothes? Let me know, because I got plenty to send with tags on them if someone is still looking for clothes.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the positive of it, though, like just the appreciation of the thought of a, once again, community coming together and saying, what can I send? Like, maybe I don't have money, but I can send some clothes. So there's a positive in it. But again, the gift cards and the different things probably at this point right now is probably a little bit more helpful than more clothes. You got to think, it is LA. There's probably nothing more they need than more clothes. Yeah. I think another thing that's interesting with this, if I want to say a similarity between what happened with Katrina and what's happening in LA is I don't know if I want to call it criticism, the critiquing of the response from the mayor and the governor. Because Katrina was like that too. It was like the mayor, they was like, you suck. Like, you have failed us as a mayor during Katrina. And then some people came back was like, he did all he can do. Like, it's Katrina. But I feel like we're seeing the mix of criticisms also from the mayor and also the governor of LA. Because I've seen celebrities who've come out and said, like, y'all are trying to bash this lady and she's doing all that she can. And you have some people who are like, she's on vacation. She don't care. So to me, that was like one of the things I've seen as far as, if I could say, was kind of along the same lines of the some for and some against how it's been handled from a government perspective.
Yeah, I think that people are just hating on LA and they're hating on California. And there's this like huge Republican like backlash and agenda to try to turn California red and to try to get, Republicans in office in the mayor's seat. And so I definitely think it's a huge agenda by heavy MAGA supporters in their critiquing of the governor and mayor. And you're absolutely right. I think like the biggest news around that was like Khloe Kardashian basically coming for Mayor Karen Bass. And honestly, you're right, doing Katrina, our Mayor Nagin got a lot of criticism, but he was reelected. So people generally felt that he responded well, right? Clearly, a lot of other stuff happened with Mayor Nagin after that, but he did get reelected. So people felt that his response was very like passionate and very like, for the people, and thus he got reelected. Now, I will say that when it comes to Newsom and Bass, what did y'all see the videos? Like, did people see the videos of these hurricanes made of fire, right? And I just like, how are mere mortals in fire trucks going to stop what I just saw? Help me.
Fire tornadoes.
It was crazy. Right. And so I really am trying to figure out how they were going to stop that. And people said, but prevention. And I was like, yeah, to a certain degree. Yeah, you probably shouldn't be popping fireworks when y'all haven't had water, sir, and causing a fire that essentially goes across everywhere. There's also investigation around people causing arson. So then starting fires in other neighborhoods, right? Like, that is crazy. And like you said, karma gonna come back for those people. But it's just like really, in my opinion, and to your point, crazy that Mayor Karen Bass is getting blamed, even for places that she's not even the mayor of. Right. Yeah. Malibu got their own mayor. These places have their own mayor and she still is getting the blame. And that's ultimately because they are trying to politicize what's happening. And they're trying to come for the governor and for the mayor, who those seats are both held by Democrats. It's just not sexy right now to be a Democrat or to be liberal. It just isn't. And so it's all out war on all of us, it's particularly under the guise of DEI.
Yeah. You said something, you talked about the firefighters though. So I do want to say love, shout out, everything to those firefighters, especially those incarcerated who are out there fighting fire, like can't do anything else, but we need you to help with these fires. But honestly, to all the firefighters though, much love and appreciation, because that's a life or death type of job in itself, but especially in the middle of like crazy wildfires.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, like firefighters from all across the world.
Yes.
I mean, everybody's sitting in help, right? And so I'm just thinking, like, what will make you look at the situation and think that people aren't doing everything they humanly can do, right? Yeah. To put these fires out and to help people.
I think the most beautiful thing that I saw was neighbors, family members and neighbors who were going and like taking out as much stuff as they could to try to help save neighbors' pictures or something that was sentimental that they was, I don't want to leave my house without. And it's like, what do I have to do to come help you so that we can get you out of here? I thought that was absolutely amazing. I saw quite a few videos of strangers or family or friends or whatever. It was like, what do I got to come in your house and get for you we got to get you out of here. So to your point, community has played a huge, huge role.
Yeah, it definitely has, and will continue to play a huge role over the next weeks and years. Individuals who are like, okay, how long is it going to take to rebuild? Like, honestly, I would say like in New Orleans, it took people years. And I said, prepare for anywhere between 4 to 7 years to like rebuild, 10 years to feel sane again from going through something so dramatic. And now that we're at 20 years with Katrina, we're just like, has it really been 20 years? That felt like yesterday because it's so fresh. It always stays so fresh. So definitely seek counseling and all the things that you need.
I don't know if maybe, I'm a conspiracy theorist when it comes to like our phones listening to us. So it's crazy because somehow in my feed, there was a guy who was in Asheville and he was showing the damage that is still there. It's like this happened in September and nobody's really talking about it, but like this is what part of it still looks like. And it looked as if it happened yesterday. And yes, this hasn't been a year, but to your point, it's not going to change. It's not going to get better tomorrow. It's not going to get better next month. It's not going to get better in 6 months. It's going to be some years before, I guess, any form of normalcy is back after something like that happens.
Yeah, you're right. And so I think, people definitely have to just be patient and everybody just kind of coming together and supporting each other in order to get back on their feet. And so that's why I think about just like encouraging those who are listening, who've gone through disasters, who are going through disasters actively, to focus on rebuilding not just homes, but lives and communities, because I think that is like what really matters. And that is ultimately what brings people back, right? Some people might go, but they know, oh, I'm going home at some point. I'm gonna go home. And I think that is like the biggest message or lesson that I have taken, is that home is always, where your heart is, where your memories are. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a structure. You can build that. You're going to build another structure. You're going to make new memories, and you're going to think back and use all the lessons to help other people and to really, really think about how grateful you are, right, for being able to do that.
Yeah. Is there any closing it out? Definitely want to go back one more time, talk about ways to get involved, ways to be helpful. Once again, not saying don't send clothes, because if that's all that you can send, it is what it is. But there's GoFundMes. There are reputable nonprofits that are available who have donation pages. There's options for gift cards. So there are ways to get involved or give back if you can, or in some way.
Yeah. And also make sure, you all are like staying on top of FEMA. You can literally go to FEMA.gov and not only understand, but get all the resources that you need to ensure that you are getting help and that you're not getting like left out or pushed out. Over the next couple of weeks, Congress will determine how much they're going to give. And I definitely am praying for LA that they get all the resources and funding that they need to rebuild and to come back even stronger.
Really quickly on that before we close too, talk about Congress will depend on the number. And when they're done with that damage number, I wouldn't be surprised if they said 20, $30 billion.
They're already saying 20 billion.
It's going to be up there. But I think it's also a cautionary tale of people are now being offered low interest loans or different things like that. And people, to your point, be patient because there's grant money, there's government money that is there to help you. They're supposed to help you. That's their job to help you. So don't run out just because someone is offering you a low interest loan because you live in LA or because your house burned down. There's free money. There's that free money if you pay taxes that's coming to you. So don't just jump out there and get quote unquote a low interest loan that people are now trying to offer.
Yeah. And I think because we heavily focus on entrepreneurship on this podcast, I think that message is even heavily geared towards small businesses, right? Because the SBA, shout out to my former friends at the SBA, who are going to offer low interest loans, to your point, but there are going to be community foundations, there are going to be economic development offices, there are going to be chambers of commerce who actually create funds for small businesses and small business fund relief programs. And so make sure you are getting all the funding that is in the form of grants before you go pay somebody back interest for loans. And, nothing's wrong with taking out low interest loans, but I would hate for people to have to do that and wish that they would have just like waited or had the opportunity to get funding from other sources and not take out loans.
Yeah. The last thing I will ask, based off, especially because of your experience, for those who are looking where to go, who to go to, is there a website, or do you recommend people go here, go there? What do you say to those people who are looking, who don't have a clue?
Yeah. So again, I would definitely go to FEMA.gov. But the governor of California and those who are following the governor, I would definitely follow him. He's also recommending, he also built websites, right? So he's built 2 websites where people can go and get information. And so I'm looking up what those websites are so I can mention them. I don't know if people are following. So many of us have left Twitter, but he tweets on Twitter like crazy.
X.
God, it's going to be Twitter forever. I can't find fire.ca.gov is one of the websites that he recommends. Also, ca.gov/LA fires is another one. But definitely go to his page because they have created within a matter of 48 hours a brand new website to essentially combat misinformation and to get those in LA who've been impacted the right resources and the right help. So definitely make sure that y'all are following that information and going to those websites.
And I lied. Got one more. I said there was one more.
Go for it.
Last one, then we are wrapping it up. What would be your advice, information, resources to those who either don't have insurance or are in the likelihood that the insurance is not going to pay out? Because we've seen it. We've seen it across the board. Miami, New Orleans, when a natural disaster happens, they will do everything in their power to find a reason and way to say, yep, that doesn't fall within these parameters, claim denied. I know you, family, friends, community, you've seen it, you've dealt with it. What is your advice knowing that either one, uninsured, or two, the insurance company's going to do, again, everything in their power to say claim denied?
Yeah. So, two things to just expect, and I'm just saying this from insurance, from experience, is, and something to note, most people actually don't have the value of their home covered in insurance, right? So if your home is worth $2 million, you might have $1.2 million in insurance. I saw a guy, his home was worth $50 million, and he had like $8 million of home insurance. So most people are not actually planning for their entire house to be completely destroyed, right? They're thinking like, oh, if there's some fire damage and a piece of it gets burned, I'll use the insurance money to fix that portion. Or in New Orleans, if my house floods at the bottom, the whole house isn't going to flood. So I'll take that insurance money and use it to repair. No one actually is prepared to use insurance money to rebuild their entire house. And most people do not have policies large enough to cover their entire house. And so that's the first thing, first and foremost. For those who don't have insurance are going to fight, or who do and are going to fight with insurance companies, it really is going to be determined based on how much money the feds approve to send to California. And that's going to determine how large the grants that people receive to rebuild are, right? But I just don't know anyone who hasn't come out of pocket in some form or fashion to rebuild a home that was completely destroyed, right? Hopefully, what these billionaires can do is come out their pocket and help fund new funds, right, that are adjacent to the government to help people come home. That's what I hope for.
It's not the ones in California, which I hope is the billionaires of California, because that's where they live. But I think we've all seen billionaires like Tyler Perry say, I'm trying to figure out now through the right channels, what can I do to help? Because he knows like there are a lot of people who, to your point, either uninsured or they're underinsured. And so, again, I hope the billionaires of LA will do something, but I have seen other billionaires like a Tyler Perry speak out and say, once I figure out the right, legit, the proper channels, I'm doing whatever I can.
Yeah. And Beyonce, she just announced she's giving $2.5 million to families, specifically in those historic Black neighborhoods. And I do think that is the way to make up for the difference of what insurance companies and the government via FEMA won't give to rebuild homes, right? And also the land is so valuable. And so, if you have the land, that's a big piece of coming home, is having a place to build on, having a place to potentially live on in temporary housing until you're able to rebuild. So all these things will come into play. And I'll tell you one of my rich lessons, which is a very actual rich lesson, that living in a place with natural disasters has made me think about. I talked a little bit about having home insurance, right? And so I was just talking to Austin about, the insurance that we have in the house. I was like, oh, this doesn't cover, it covers like 65% of the house. And so I was thinking in my head, man, should I get a second? This will be my third. Should I get another flood insurance or increase my flood insurance? I'm just like, it's so much money, right? It's like thousands of dollars on insurance to cover it. But it also has me thinking about, people say, oh, you need like a 6-month emergency fund or a year emergency fund. I think about having the value of my home in my bank account in case something happens to my house. And that's like an actual factual, like rich, a rich thing to say. But it's something that I work towards, right? To always ensure that I have the value of my home in my bank account for the for this idea that if this house floods, if something happens, I'm probably going to have to battle these insurance companies and I may not end up successful, even though I have spent thousands of dollars in premiums over the years. So that's just something that I think about like often. And, when I posed this question to everyone, what would they, what was their lesson? People said, get your photos, like everyone focused on like memories, right?
Yeah.
Like these things, these tangible memories that they could not replace. That was like the biggest response that people had, were those tangible things that meant a lot to them. And I talked about me having like a sympathy box, right? My sentimentals box, right? Full of things that I could just grab and go. And so those are some of the things that I think about now, are the lessons that I've learned through living through a natural disaster.
Yeah. I don't know. So once again, 2025 has been off to a interesting start. Number one. Number two, though, our thoughts and our prayers and our actions are with those in LA and surrounding areas who are dealing with the fires. I know they were pretty much saying today, like, with the winds picking back up, who knows if it's over, if it's not over, how much more damage will be done. So, of course, even from our side, from the rich lessons, from us as a duo, we'll, continue to speak, do our part. Any last words from you?
Yeah, I just think about the echoes of people who are saying, who are just talking about like the hate that people are kind of giving towards LA. And it makes me think about something that I heard this Black man say. He was like, to hate you is to hate myself. And that is how I feel about all the families who are going through what you're going through today. And I wish nothing but the best for you all.
Love, 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 peace, happiness, and once again, prayers, thoughts, but also actions.
Yes. Thank you. And that's all for us today.